This video is for you if you've been doing all the inner work but still feel trapped in old patterns that probably aren't even yours. This could be why. Today, I'm sharing a very powerful forgiveness prayer that creates true inner alchemy. It is something I've used to heal and bless and prosper. This prayer was given to me by my minister, Dr. Mark. Well, he's the former minister of North Hollywood Church in California, Centers for Spiritual Living. And he used this prayer for decades with his clients, for himself. And when he gave it to me, I used it because I was like, this guy's living a good life. I'm going to trust everything that he gives to me. And I used it faithfully and healed a lot of stuff. It worked for me, it worked for my clients, and I hope it works for you. Actually, I don't hope, I know it'll work for you. So this not only will give you some really good insights to what needs to come up to be revealed, to be healed, but it does bring true relief. Okay, so you might not even think anything was wrong with your childhood. Your parents are great, you love them, you get along. And this is not about blame or shame or anything like that. It's really about freedom, freedom from the patterns, freedom from the old way of being, right? Because a lot of our parents evolve over the years and then you totally love them when they're in their 60s and 70s, right? So don't worry, it's not about that. It's about making positive change. And you'll realize, and maybe you already do because you've done a lot of work on yourself, maybe some therapy, that our parents were only doing the best that they could with what they knew at the time. Some of us had parents that were still in their 20s. And can I tell you now, in hindsight, 20s is like their babies. I feel like I didn't realize how young I was when I was in my 20s. And so imagine raising 3 kids. I can't. And so you pick stuff up in that energy, in that way of being day in and day out with those grown folks that you look up to and you trust because they're taking care of you and raising you and loving you. And so it creates things. So we're going to undo that today, at least all the unhealthy stuff. So I'm going to read from my notes because I think this is important. We pick up these patterns, as I said, and you may not recognize it, but as I read this list, you might. So do you stress eat and wonder where you pick that up? Overworking, overgiving, being too nice, avoiding conflict, using substances to cope, or shrinking in new or unfamiliar spaces, playing small, not speaking your truth. So these things, they're not bad. It was transferred to you as a child. Nobody meant to do that, right? So we spend our life learning, growing and evolving, and we get to undo the unhelpful stuff. So that's what we're going to do here today. I know for my parents, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. Okay, so both of my parents had already passed away when I started this work, but I knew so back in 2013, I was grieving my mom. She had left, and my dad had died 10 years prior. So much was being stirred up in me. I couldn't do life the same way. It caused me to really look, as most tragedies do, traumatic experiences, which I consider this, losing my mom, who was my everything. It caused me to go deeper. It caused me to go within and see what's up with me, who I am, how I want to be in life, how I want to do things differently. Okay. Because my mom did not leave in the most peaceful way. Well, she did. She passed on in her sleep. But however, leading up to that, there was a lot of illness, sickness, doctor's visits, home hospice, medications, and it wasn't easy to see my mom go through that. But I was so grateful that I could be the one there for her. So after all that, I made up a story in my mind. And I know in hindsight, after doing the work, that it was just a story. I made up this story that she worked hard her whole life to take care of me, gave me everything, but worked a job that was hard, stressful, and toxic. Literally, she worked with chemicals. And so, with all that and the stress and not taking care of herself, she got sick and died. Right. So the story that created was, you work hard, you get a good job, you do a job for years you don't like, and then you get sick and die. So what's it all about? What's it all for anyway? Right. So that was where I was at, and that's what I needed to reconcile. And I did. So I knew there was work to do there. So I poured myself into these studies in North Hollywood with Dr. Mark. and it healed me. So, I used to meet with him as my practitioner, and he offered some stuff around my dad too. So I was like, okay, I'm praying for both of them. 7 times 70. So I'm going to explain how this works. But in that space of praying for my mom, I was able to get free and like retell that story and realize it was just a story I was telling myself to help myself get through the grief, and try to understand why things were the way they were and how I wanted to move forward. Really, it was about me learning about who I am, how I want to show up in the world, be of service, and do things differently, right? I had to do things differently because I didn't want to end up like that. Okay, so with that, oh, yeah, so one of the realizations was I realized some of the stress and anxiety, the rushing around, that wasn't mine. I learned that from mom, last minute, running here and there, just barely making it on time. That was a mom pattern. But again, no blame, no shame. I just recognize it and then I choose differently. Same thing with the nervousness. I was like, I am not a nervous person. Like, I teach and I've shown up on social media with hundreds of people watching, right? I've done workshops, coaching, training in at least rooms of 40 or more. I've gone to networking events and coaching trainings where there's tons of people I didn't know. So I didn't think that was mine, right? And so after doing this prayer, I realized, oh, that's not mine. I don't have to be like that. This nervousness can just be excitement, right? So I told a new story and had a new experience of life. So my perspective changed, my life changed. And even with my dad, let's see. Yeah, my dad had a hard life. I won't get into it now, but he had a rough childhood. He had illness too, and the kids made fun of him. And so it was really hard. And he never got the therapy he needed, I realized. You know, yeah. I mean, he didn't have the kind of parents who just knew what to do. And so went untreated, and then he self-medicated with alcohol. But I believe, oh, and I had a beautiful insight with a client, actually a stretch client, who told me a story about his brother. He was like, my brother was a drinker, but because of the trauma his brother had gone through, he said he thinks if his brother never drank like that, they probably would have lost him sooner. So it made me think, oh my God, if my dad didn't drink, he would have been miserable and he probably would have left much sooner. Although he passed at 50, which is way too young, in my opinion. But do you see how we can uncover these things, see them differently so we can empower ourselves to live differently, to choose differently, and to not stay stuck in patterns that aren't even ours? Because I'll keep it real. I used to like to drink in my 20s. I partied and wasn't much of a steady drinker. I was into health and wellness. So it didn't really fit. And then when I would drink, I'd get sick because I was, cutting or not eating carbs. And so it just didn't work. So I really, over the years, from many trips to Brazil, working with supplements and prayer, I just don't drink like that. I really don't even want it. Maybe once a year, twice a year max. So prayer works, shifts in perception work when you do this work. Okay. So, yes, the big, huge realization, and I know you can get there too, is that, like I said earlier, my parents were only doing the best that they could with what they were given. Now, my mom had a hard childhood too, but it threw her into self-development, personal, improvement and growth. She did therapy and she made a better life for herself. And I'm not saying either one was better or worse, but I'm saying their path was perfect for them and the evolution of their soul. Because I'm not God. I know I'm one with God, but I'm not the God. So I don't know. I don't pretend to know what their journey was, except it was their own and it was unique and it was beautiful, just as mine is unique and yours is unique. And it's not going to look like everyone else's, and that's okay. Hmm. Okay. So here's the practice. I call it 7 times 70 forgiveness prayer. Again, this was given to me by Dr. Mark and changed my life. So you get some prayer beads, and this is a mala, which is 108. So that's way too many, right? So you would like go to the end and like count 70 and then click it off here, right? I had this really cool one that was much smaller. It was plastic. It wasn't as pretty. These are labradorite crystals. But the one I had gotten had 30 beads or 35 beads. So I go around it twice, hit my 70. Now, cool story. I'm just going to tell you a story anyway. After getting back from my first trip to Brazil, I noticed people had been praying the rosary. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a rosary and do my 70 times 7 with the rosary. Because I think I was using a counter app on my phone before. Because again, I had a spiritual sister in class. She was like, Missy, you got to do the prayers, do the prayers. And I was like, okay, peer pressure. I had the best peer pressure at that church. Really helped me change my life. And so, okay, come back from Brazil. I'm like, I want to get a rosary. Well, this cute little 99-cent store in Glendale, California was my mom's favorite store. And I remember that. And so I kind of go there to kind of feel mom again, feel like she was with me. And I go looking for these beads and I couldn't find them, but then I saw some behind the desk and there's this woman. And I said, oh, can I take a look at those? And they're prayer beads. I didn't know what kind. I still don't even know. I think it might be the Orthodox Christians pray with that type of bead. I should do some research. But nonetheless, it worked for me. And so but the cool thing is about these beads and this woman, I told her, I said, my mom used to love coming here. I've just been through spiritual retreat. I want to start, get serious about my prayer practice. And she goes, oh, what do you practice? And I just told her, well, it's kind of hard to explain because as a spiritual practitioner, we are open up at the top. So we celebrate all faiths, paths to God, religions, and take the good and leave the rest, right? If it's not love, I don't want it. So I explained that to her and she goes, oh, well, you should come to temple. And I'm like, temple? She's like, yeah, Tao temple. And I said, oh my gosh, yes, of course. It was so in alignment because in college, when I studied Taoism, another moment that opened my life, opened my heart, and really showed me that the world doesn't revolve around me, that kindness and compassion are the way, and mostly for myself, self-compassion. And I was working with affirmations and learning really incredible stuff in my holistic studies classes at San Francisco State. So that being said, prayer beads, those were the ones I used all the time. And I carry them in one hand, dog leash in the other hand, and we'd be running the hills of La Crescenta, saying my prayers, healing my shit, okay? I healed stuff around mom, dad, even my ex. So prayers work. So how does it work? Okay, back to the practice. You're going to count 70 beads and you're going to do this 70 times. Do this prayer 70 times or count on your app. And that's one round, okay? 70 prayers. And then you do that every day for 7 days. I promise you, something will shift in your life. You'll get insights, learnings, you'll feel better, lighter. Maybe someone else's name comes up for you and you're like, oh, I need to pray for that person. But it's just starting the clearing work. Okay. So like I said, prayer beads, rosary, mala, counter app, and you can say it out loud or you can say it silently, okay? Like I said, I did it while I was running. You can do it on a walk. You can do it just sitting. Even sometimes I did it while I was driving. I know, terrible, but I was serious about getting this practice in. And can I tell you, with LA traffic, there's not a whole lot you can do when you're stuck in the car for an hour, hour and a half. Woo, those drives to Culver City, let me tell you, not fun. Okay, consistency is what matters. So don't skip a day. And it doesn't matter what time of day. Like I said, I do it in the morning when I'm running. I do it in the middle of the day when I'm driving. Or now I have a way of counting on my hands when I lay down in bed. I like to do it. It helps me get to sleep, knocks me out like that. Now that's if I'm not trying to hit 70, right? Like sometimes I know I'll fall asleep before I hit 70, but I'm okay with that now. But when I really want to heal something, I'll make sure I hit the 70. I'll do it before I go to sleep. Okay, so how does the prayer go? It goes like this. And I can send you a link below that has like a PDF that shows you the words in case you want to get this. So you say like this. And you would just insert the name. Well, we'll just say mom. I praise my mom. I raise my mom. I accept my mom. I bless my mom. I forgive my mom. I release my mom into divine love. Or just say, I praise mom. I raise mom. I accept mom. I bless mom. I forgive mom. I release mom into divine love. And I love that because I'm praising and raising her even beyond the grave. Well, she was cremated, even beyond the body. Our soul, I truly believe, goes on and it continues to evolve. That I can't tell you. I don't know. I haven't died yet, but I have studied near-death experiences in the spirit world, and just it seems like there is something else. And if you haven't watched the show The Good Place, there's something else. So I think it behooves us and helps our loved ones to keep praying for them even after they leave their bodies. So I felt like I was doing something good for mom. I praised her, I raised her, I blessed her, I accepted her, right? Acceptance is another powerful tool for healing anything you got going on in your life because you stop fighting it and resisting it. I forgive my mom, even though we know if we zoom out on the big scope of things, there's nothing to forgive. She did her best. And then I release her to divine love. But with that release, I release the stories, I release the heavy energy, any unforgiveness I might have had or blame, and I let it go. And divine love to me is God's love. That's the universal love. That is the all powerful, all encompassing love that just surrounds everyone in and through all. And so that feels good to let it go, because I'm not like some people will pray something away. But again, that energy, you got to pay attention to your energy. If you're fighting it, you're like, get rid of them. That's the wrong energy. But send them back to love, send them back to God, let the universe handle it. And it's handled. There's no push, there's no fight. More talks on that. I got a lot to say about fight energy. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. So 7 times 70, you're going to do that prayer 70 times. Count on your beads. 7 days in a row, you will shift. You will have a healing. And healing doesn't always look how we think it's supposed to. It could just be lightness. It could be happiness. It could be a huge, like, whoa, aha moment. But I promise you, something will move. And then something else might come up, and you start praying for that person. And you just keep clearing and clearing and healing and healing. And it's amazing. Call it a miracle. All right, my friends. So forgiveness clears the past, but structure is what helps you stay grounded when life hits the fan. Yes. So in the next video, I'll show you how spiritual systems keep you steady and calm and grounded, even when life gets chaotic. See you there.